Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. This week's topic wasn't one I ever thought I'd do because I thought it was something everyone was aware of. Turns out, no. Every time it comes up, people are surprised and horrified, so let me tell you about trans panic. Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation, someone who didn't panic when I came out as trans, Susan Bridges.
Hello.
I'm very glad you did not.
I mean, I'm not a panicky sort.
Well, okay, but I'm trying to give you credit here. Don't brush that off.
Right.
Our guest this week is Riley Silverman, a writer, comedian, and actress who has written for Doctor Who, Star Wars, and D&D Beyond. She's the head writer for the International Waters podcast and plays as Chase Variant. I love that name, by the way.
Thank you.
On the comedy role-playing podcast, Good Chaotic. Welcome, Riley.
Hello. Thank you. Yeah, Chase Variant came up literally while wandering on WonderCon one year. My GM on that show, Dan Peck, and I thought of the name, and we actually thought of a different character for it when we first thought of the name, and then for various reasons we couldn't end up using that character, but I liked the name so much I kept it for the character I built instead.
It's really good. For nerds especially, it's, a ha-ha, wink, wink. But let me get your opinion on this as someone who has written for properties that you love.
Yes.
Did writing for Doctor Who or Star Wars change your feelings about them? Do you look at them differently now?
I don't think I look at them differently. I think I have more professional respect for the writers
Sure.
because I'm part of it. And I do feel like what changed for me was I feel less willing to publicly engage with discourse on the properties anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Once I had Star Wars books out, I was like, okay, I'm not going to engage in arguments about Star Wars online anymore. And similarly, with Doctor Who, if I will still be complimentary of the show when I feel that way, but if I dislike something that's happening on the show, I will not voice that opinion anymore. I feel like it's not a spot. I don't think I should slag a thing that I actively contribute to the writing of. I feel like I should treat my fellow writers for this IP as peers. I was asked to do a podcast recently that was going to be like a commentary podcast on the 96 TV movie that Paul McGann starred in, and they were presenting it to me as we're gonna watch something terrible, and I was like, well, first of all, I don't think it's terrible. I think that it was a noble effort, but also I was literally on a panel with the screenwriter of that movie 2 months ago. I don't feel okay going on a podcast being like, this thing he wrote sucks. So I politely declined that offer.
Yeah, I feel like I do the same thing, but for everything, even stuff that we don't work on, because once you write in entertainment, you realize all of these people are your peers, and also nobody is setting out to make anything bad. We're all trying to make the best thing we can, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and that happens, and it's okay if things are not for us, or I'll call out, especially if something I find is transphobic or homophobic, that kind of, because if we don't talk about that, that'll never change, especially the stuff that comes from implicit biases in society.
Sure.
But other than that, I'm just if I don't like it, I'm not going to talk about it. And instead, I'll just talk about the stuff I do love. And I find that's a much better way to handle things.
Yeah. In general, I think I came to a point with media consumption a few years ago, probably a decade ago at this point, where I was kind of I don't really want to keep talking about what I don't like. So I'm just going to talk about what I do like and be happy. And
who wants to dwell on that? It's
whenever I see people who make their entire online personality being in the comments for a show they dislike or a movie, and I'm like, why is this worth your time? There's so much media out there. Something is targeting you. Find it and enjoy it. And I can't imagine spending more than a second of my efforts and my energy on something that isn't serving me. It's just wild.
Exactly.
You know?
You have one one life and this is how you want to spend your time, right? I
Right.
don't
It's
get it.
so
No.
weird. And it feels like it just feeds in on itself too. Like
Yeah.
people go out to have a bad time at this point with these kinds of content and then they get mad when they have a bad time. It's like, yeah, you were looking for a bad time and you're having a bad time. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Imagine going into something looking for every problem you can find and then finding some problems and you're going to be unhappy. What a surprise.
Yeah.
Ah. All right. For you, what
Uh-huh.
has been the best thing about transitioning?
Definitely all the free parking. I feel like that's been I didn't know that was a thing we got and that was really cool to find that out. I That was such a dumb joke.
Don't call it dumb. I really laughed at that. What did you say it
I
about
like the
me?
pity laughs that I get from other trans women for my sense of humor. No, I think it is just the kind of piece of self. Like I think that
Yeah.
I before I transitioned, I was constantly at war with myself, and now I'm not. And like now both sides have united against me, and it's perfect. It's all there. It's Chuck Wendig had a blue sky or a post at one point that was like inside you there are two wolves and they've teamed up and they're working against you. So that's happening now. And it was like such a specific joke for a point in time. Like, yep, that's what's happening now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think being at peace with myself. I think like joking aside, I remember when I was pre-transition, I used to like have really bad insomnia, and most of that insomnia dealt with the constant what ifs in my brain of like what would happen to me if the world found out my horrible dark secret, and it stressed me out so much, and I
Yeah.
would like lay this in bed staring at the ceiling. And I feel like one nice thing, partially because of certain meds that help with this, like progesterone, which I don't take anymore, but I think affected my body chemistry. I sleep like a baby now. It's fantastic. I can't stay awake to the point where like sometimes I'm frustrated that I can't stay awake, which is kind of delightful. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but still, I do feel like after I transitioned and came out, like I didn't have those like evening scaries like I used to have.
Yeah. There's like a sense of peace that I didn't know was possible to ever feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend
Yeah.
of mine before because it took me a long time to accept like medically transitioning. Like I was socially transitioning before I started taking hormones or anything like that.
Sure.
And I didn't think that it would work for me, which is why I kind of like resisted it because I was so late in the game at that point. And I remember a friend of mine was like, even if nothing physically changes in your body, she was like, having the hormones change does so much for you. And I was like, what does that mean? And the best way she described it is like, she's like, imagine that you are a Mac and you've been trying to run Windows your entire life. And now you're actually installing the Mac OS and everything works properly. I'm like, that is like the best pitch anyone's made for me to actually go on hormones. And I do feel like, yeah, now my body runs on the right software. So
Yeah. It changed. I didn't ever expect or think it was possible to have the mental like changes that came along with feeling the right way inside. It's just wild. Absolutely. If I knew that was a thing, wow. I just thought I would have lost my mind going in.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, then on the flip side of that coin, what has been the worst or maybe most difficult part of transitioning for you?
if I can exclude transphobia as like an external thing, because that's a
It's
whole
always, yeah,
thing. I think
sure.
I think as much as I'm at peace with myself mentally more than I ever was before, I think I still struggle a lot. I mentioned earlier like not feeling like hormones would work, quote unquote, for me.
Yeah,
And I do feel like as a result of maybe waiting till later in my life to transition, and also like maybe not having the finances that I would need to get like surgeries and things like that, I do
sure.
feel like I have plateaued in like what my physical changes will be. And so now it's like I might just have this permanent disconnect between like my mental image of myself, this like dysmorphia with dysphoria about like how I picture myself. And then like I can't tell you how often I will see a photo of myself even now. And like sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I love myself and I love what I look like. And I'm so joyful that that's the person I'm looking back at myself in the mirror. But then I'll like see a photo where, and maybe this is a common experience, not just for trans people, but I'll see a photo where I didn't have control over the pose and the lighting and the out, the angles and everything. And I'm like, who is this person? Like this person doesn't, that's not what I look like, is it? But like that is what I look like. And I think that war between like still to this day, like the limitations of where like medically I've been able to go and physically, and where like, because I feel like I remember a trans man, the one who posts as like assigned media on Evan on Blue Sky and stuff. He talked
Yeah,
about like the way that trans men, it's like your body transitions faster than your brain does, and how shocking it was to like suddenly have everybody in the world treating him like a man, but like mentally he was like still trying to like get across that gap. I feel like I had the
sure.
exact opposite. Like I felt like within like a year, I felt like I was fully living comfortably as a woman at that point. But like still, I'm now like over a decade in on being on hormones, and I still feel like every single day, like I'm still being seen as a man with just like feminine features and things like that. And it feels like no matter how hard I try to dress to present as myself, I don't like to use the word passing because I'm not trying to pass, quote unquote.
Yeah,
Like I don't care if people see me and see a trans woman. I just want them to see the woman part. And I feel like
right.
I still, and I know I said that I wasn't talking about transphobia, but I do feel like if the body could just get that little bit further along, then like it would be easier for me on a daily basis. And like my voice, I have tried so hard to like train my voice, and I know like right now I'm doing like the voice I think that I want to be doing, and then I'll be listening to a recording later, and I'm like, oh, was I even doing like, was I even feminizing my voice at all? Because I'll like listen back to a podcast I was on, and especially if I start getting excited and getting into a topic, suddenly I'm like, why did BB King show up to do this podcast? I don't why did they redub my voice with Michael Hart Duncan? Like, what is happening? So
Yeah, it's harder for me to maintain my voice the more excited or emotional that I get to as well. And I did speech therapy for like 3 years, and it was so hard. So I totally get it. And sometimes I think the difference for me now, I still have times where I see photos and I'm like, is that really what I look like? But ones that I didn't take myself or what have you. But like before, when I would see that, they would always give me a huge, huge dysphoria spike. And now I don't get that. I just get like, there's like an incongruity. Like, I think that's a bad photo of me, but it doesn't give me dysphoria. So I don't know if it's, and I wish I knew why, what the difference was. It's like
yeah,
this ephemeral thing that we don't have hard answers for.
it's still hit or miss. I definitely get dysphoria from pictures way less than I used to, but I still get it depending on the photo. Like I agree with you that like a lot of times I do just go, oh gosh, I like sometimes it's like more like it's coming less from a dysphoria point of view and more of a body issues kind of way, which is why like I
Sure.
did mention dysmorphia instead of dysphoria, because I think I do struggle a lot with my weight and how my weight like plays into transphobia as well, and like the way that like being plus size like plays into cultural standards of femininity and what that
Oh,
means
yeah.
for us. So like it's a lot of things that I feel upset about in my life are like physically. I feel like I talk to a lot of cis women who feel the same way that I do about it. So like it's like I'm not at this point like I'm like, am I talking anymore about transphobia and trans misogyny, or am I just dipping into regular old misogyny and body image issues? So yeah.
Regular garden variety misogyny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough too. Also, like, I totally get the feeling like if you could just get one step further, you would get gendered correctly more often and stuff. But I feel like there are so many times we can be doing absolutely everything possible and be as femme and woman coded as possible, and we can still get misgendered because it's all about what's going on in the other person's head and not us,
Yeah,
and
sure.
so, but it's still hard because we're the ones who have to deal with it, with the fallout of it. They don't care. It doesn't make any
Yeah,
difference to them.
they'll move on the
So
rest of their life. They'll never think about it again. Like
I
I
know.
remember I went to a Muna concert at the Greek like 2 years ago, and I was putting the effort in. Like I had a pretty solid makeup on. I was looking hot. I had a really good wig and everything, and I was buying my drinks, and the guy still called me sir, and I was
Mm,
just like, of all places, at one of the queerest concerts in town, like I even said to him, like, sir, you're gonna have a lot of queer customers coming to your bar this whole night, and you don't want to mess up all of their nights. So like I kind of like did him a favor because I was
yeah.
like I go, I'm
Well, you
being
did a
nicer
favor to every other person there.
100%. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's so wild too because it's like not using a gendered honorific is always an option. You
yeah,
don't have to, just be like, here you go, have a nice night. Or, it's so easy to not do that to people. So yeah, it drives me batty.
yeah. Although I don't know if we've talked about, so I sometimes I do feel too like some people go too far in the other direction where
Oh,
they'll
sure.
actively not use a gendered one because they don't want to use the one that they know is correct for you. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
maybe that'll be more for the next episode's topic. But yeah,
Our society has a lot of problems.
yeah.
And before we get to talking about the one we're going to talk about this week, do you want to let folks know where they can find you online after listening?
You can find me. I'm mostly. I'm not as active on social media as I used to be, which is great for my mental health. But if you
Yeah.
do find me, you'll find me on Blue Sky and on Instagram. I'm just Riley Silverman on both. Well, I'm Riley Silverman Busky.social on Blue Sky and
Yeah.
Riley Silverman Instagram. I am the head writer, like you mentioned ahead of time, for the International Waters podcast, which is on Max Fun. And also, if you check out the Good Chaotic podcast, I'm currently a player on that. I've previously GM'd in the past, but those are the best places to find me. I have a comedy album as well if you want to check that out. That's available on streaming sites, and also if you buy it digitally, it's way better for me. But yeah.
How did I not know you had a comedy album? That's amazing.
You know why? Because when you and I met, I had already kind of like retired from stand up. I did stand up for like 20
Oh,
years.
okay.
So
Wow.
I
I
had
did
a
not know
real
that.
I had a really bad burnout from stand up.
Sure.
And as I transitioned in stand up, I did like comedy for about 10 years before I transitioned and then 10 years after. And I do think that it had a pretty big impact on my career, and like good and bad. I think there was a lot of opportunities that it did give for me to get to do like really fun queer festivals and things like that, and to play in like fun spaces, and also to be more. I think that coming out absolutely like made my comedy better because it meant I was being honest and open
Sure.
about stuff. But at the same time, I think it put me in a very special little box and kept me in that box for a long time. And the space to be a trans woman in comedy even like 10 years ago is not the space that is there now. And like around the end of when I dropped out, I felt like I was running against a wall, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. So
Yeah.
I dropped out of it, and I was kind of like, hey, this is not making you feel joy anymore. So what can you do with your time and creativity if you're not doing this thing? And that's kind of when I shifted more into both writing more often and also doing like TTRPGs and stuff as like a form of creativity. So yeah.
Yeah, we just had Boone Williams on the show, who also she's presently does stand up, and she was talking about the exact same thing about how hard it is, not just with the misogyny, like in the stand up world, but the transphobia in the
Yeah.
stand up world. And that she has to deal with both of those at like every show she goes to. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can't imagine how tough it is.
It was so wild. It would be weird to go on a stage and have the comic two before you, like, say some of the most transphobic stuff you'd ever heard in your
Yeah.
life, and then you have to follow it. Or the worst is when you've already had your set, and then you have somebody like go up after you and make fun of you for being trans, like, you know, or like I had a show was at one time where another comic just like screamed at me in the green room because I corrected my pronouns when he misgendered me, and like,
Wow.
and it was like it was treated as like we had a beef and we had a blow up, and like both of us were in the wrong for arguing in the green room, as
Oh,
opposed to
sure.
like me correcting a person for being disrespectful to me. And like, yeah.
Yeah. What the hell? Oh my God. I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, and that was there was a lot of that to where I finally was like, I don't enjoy this anymore, and I'm not having fun. And I when I was younger, you know, I ate, breathed, and drank stand up like it was like my lifeblood. Like if I didn't go on
Yeah.
stage at least once a week, I was irritable and hard to be around because I was like thirsty for stage. But by the end of
Sure.
it was the opposite, where like every time I had a show, I was like, can I not have a show anymore? That'd be great. If that show gets canceled, I'll be very happy. And that was like, you probably shouldn't want
That's
the
a
thing that's
sign.
your life passion to get canceled. So, but
Yeah.
having said that, I do have a comedy album called Intimate Apparel, and I actually weirdly I recorded it the night, like the weekend before I started taking hormones. So
Oh, okay.
everything that's on it is basically like it was the idea, the intent was this is the collection of my work up until this point in my life, and now I'm making this major change in my life, and then
Yeah.
we'll come back and see where I am in like 5-10 years. And the answer to that question was I'm not doing comedy anymore. So.
That's where you are.
Well, I had these grand ideas that I was going to do a comedy special in 3 parts, and they'd be taken over the course of my transition, so you'd see me physically change over the course
Oh,
of the
okay.
special. And the
Sure.
problem is I didn't really physically change that much, so the premise of that special did not play out the way that I wanted it to. So.
Oh, well, if you weren't having fun anyway, it's better that you have moved on to better things for
Yeah,
you.
and
So,
I don't miss it. And I think that's like I've done it a couple times since then. I actually this year I did stand up for Laser Weber's birthday party, and it was a very last
yeah,
minute request for me to do it, and I was like, you know what, sure. And I had fun, but when I got off stage, I didn't have anything of like, well, I guess I'm getting back into it. I was like, nope, that was a nice
yeah,
thing to do once every 5 years.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wish that trans panic were something cute. Like every time I wanted a pizza, but my favorite pizza place was closed. Trans panic. I'm out of hair product to make my curls right. Trans panic. This movie has a very hot lesbian in it, and I am too attracted to her. Trans panic. Alas, I must inform you, it is nothing so benign. Because trans panic, you see, is a valid and accepted legal defense people can use in cases of murder, manslaughter, and assault. And it goes like this. Quote, I thought she was a cis woman, but we went to have sex and found out she's trans and I snapped. End quote. See the link in the show notes for more. Or, this person flirted with me and I found out they were trans and so I panicked and killed them. Normal, healthy stuff. In the vast majority of the United States, this is a legal and accepted method of defense in court that you can use to justify violence against trans women. At a link in the show notes and in the text version of this topic at
SillyTransTuesdays.com.
you can see a visualization of a map of the US where this is legal. It is very sobering seeing 30 states and 5 territories allowing this while only 20 have banned it. Trans panic is similar to gay panic, which you've probably correctly surmised is the exact same thing but only for gay folks. Also, still legal in many places. Before I go too much further, Riley, I wanted to ask if you remember the first time that you heard about trans panic. Like, could you even believe it was a real thing? Like, because to me, the first time I heard about it, I was like, this is too evil to be real. This cannot be real. And somehow it was real. Like, there was this disconnect in my head.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the case later in your script here of Islan Nettles, and I remember like
Yeah.
that was one that I remember like being aware of it as a legal defense. So full disclosure, and I'm putting this out there so that if I make jokes or comments later in the episode, it's not like me just being flippant about this topic. It's that I have been violently assaulted for being trans. Like
Oh, no.
I was basically jumped in the subway on the way to a Pride event in 2014, and like for me when I first like learned about this law, I remember thinking like that's what's wild about it is because in my case, even though I had it's a very long elaborate story which I will get into if you want me to, but I don't have to, but like I had a video confession from my assailant bragging about doing it because the long story short is weirdly after he fought with me and I got away from him, he then went to like WeHo Pride and was walking around being a homophobe, transphobe, and everything. And
Yeah.
he ended up getting filmed by a video for Funny or Die, and they were asking him like why was his shirt ripped or whatever, and he was like, oh, I fought a Tiesler in the subway, and
Wow.
that guy. So like somebody sent me that video and I was able to take it to the cops and show it to the cops, and like we found like somebody because he had given his name to the release for the video
Yeah.
for like I found his Facebook page and everything, and where he had like bragged about getting into fights with quote unquote gay men all day, and I
Yeah.
took it to the cops. Nothing ever happened to him. So like for me it's like the fact that they
Oh,
even like having this defense, it's so unlikely that the police will even like police or prosecute or like
yeah.
arrest somebody for creating an assault against a trans person. So the fact that like you have to get through so many hoops to even be
To even
like
get to this stage
prosecuted
where you're
for
in
it.
court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, but then you get there and they go, oh, it's fine. It's not even illegal. You know, that's not even a
Yeah.
person. You know, that's the way that they treat it. So
It's awful. It's so dehumanizing. I remember, I think it was in one of the episodes that we did of this show on the 2022 US Trans Survey Report about how few trans people trusted police for very obvious reasons. And in one of those, I linked to a study that has shown that all police forces in the US are generally incredibly transphobic and dangerous to trans people. So Go back and check for those if you are not familiar with it. But yeah, sadly, they're awful to us.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of white supremacists. There's a lot of crossover.
There sure
Oh
is.
yeah, it's all a
Yeah,
big soup of bigotry and
it sure is.
yeah, and the system.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time I was in a car accident and somebody hit my car, and like even in the situation where like my car was clearly dented, it was the wildest scenario where there was an accident. The wheel came off one of the cars in the accident and slammed into my car. And even just telling the traffic officer about what happened to get a statement for my insurance, he was like doubting my story and questioning me and like getting
Of
testy with
course.
me. And it was like, sir, like my car is caved in. It clearly, like, you can see the tire. Like you can tell what happened. You can see where the tire is missing from this car. You can see the damage
Yeah.
on my car. I was literally a passerby, and I got collateral damage. And like, there's no reason for you to be this hostile with me. It was the wildest thing.
Yeah, it is bananas in the worst possible way. Old rotten bananas, that's what it is. Cishet friends out there, stop for a second and think about what this trans panic defense means. Think about how it would make you feel, not just on its own, but as a law supported by the government. I was flirting with this nice lady, but I found out she was cisgender, so I snapped and killed her. You can't blame me for that. And the all transgender government says, huh, yeah, that makes sense. How does that make you feel? Do you want to curl up in a ball and hide? Almost like maybe that's the entire intent? Imagine. Like, do you understand the world we are living in here? Can you imagine what it is like to be so hated by cisgender people who control everything and make all the laws that they say it's fine if people kill us because the very nature of our existence so upsets them? Let's get one thing straight. The law is wrong and effing awful. But if you think transphobes are going to stick to only using it in quote unquote sexual situations, I think our terrible president has an infrastructure week to sell you. Not that it's justified, even in sexual situations. It is not okay. But it is also a short hop from sexual situations to flirting, to she looked at me wrong, to I felt like this trans woman was hitting on me so I attacked her, to simply stating that anytime they want to inflict violence upon us. All of U.S. history shows you the way crap like this has been warped and weaponized against marginalized populations, like the Republicans' push to define existing as a trans person inherently sexual. Here's a quote from a link in the show notes. Quote, by making standards for obscenity more objective, IODA could also open the door for conservatives to legally declare trans people in general to be obscene. Project 2025, a sprawling 920-page document, falsely declares that trans people are a threat to children, states that transitioning itself is equivalent to pornography, and that pornography must be outlawed in the U.S. End quote. That would, I am sad to tell you, make the trans panic defense applicable to all of us in any situation in those states where it is legal. And if you think this isn't intrinsically tied in with chasers and the fetishization of trans women discussed the past couple of weeks in episodes 156 and 157, and the way many of us are forced into sex work, which quote unquote trans panic would then quote unquote let people assault us over, you've not been paying attention. They fetishize us, want us to be nothing more than sex objects, work to make it so we're unhoused and forced into sex work, and then have laws like this to quote unquote dispose of us afterwards. It's effing sickening. There is a case. Here we are, where a cis man was flirting with women he didn't know were trans. His friends mocked him for not knowing, and when he later flirted or maybe even just talked with another woman he found out was trans, he killed her, just straight up ended her life. He confessed, and it still took 2 years to even charge him. And then he took a plea deal down to manslaughter, and why was that even offered? The jury did not consider it a hate crime, what the duck, and he was sentenced to 12 whole years in prison. The New York Times, before they became a full-on transphobic right-wing propaganda machine, has an account of this story that is brutal. I am linking it in the show notes for the factual evidence, but if you are trans, I advise you not to read it. The description of what this disgusting piece of shit man inflicted upon Islam Nettles is beyond awful. But cis people, maybe brace yourself and take a look at what we're dealing with here. Note there was no sex, likely not even any actual flirting, which, again, to be clear, would in no way excuse it or make it less awful. It was a brief exchange of words on a street, and a cis man decided it was time for a trans woman to die. And that was a valid defense in 2015 New York. Sit with that for a moment. My beloved California was the first state to ever ban this absolute nonsense, and it still didn't even happen until 2014. Link in the show notes. I talked about this a bit in episode 89 on Trans Politics 2, You Must Vote to Protect Us, but let me state it again. There were a lot of problems with Kamala Harris's failed campaign for president. There were a lot of problems with where she stands on some issues. She also failed to directly and loudly stand up for trans people during her campaign. But her record on this issue is very clear. She led the charge that made California the first state in the nation to ban the trans panic and gay panic defenses, and even co-sponsored a bill that tried to ban them nationwide, which sadly failed. Links in the show notes. She's problematic in many ways, but her record on trans rights was never one of them. That any states have banned it now in 2026 directly traces back to her efforts to ban it in California and then lobbying other states to follow suit. It feels unconscionable that it took until 2014 for it to happen in the most liberal state in the country, and yet pales in comparison to all the places in this country where trans panic is still allowed as a legal defense. Again, see the map that I mentioned for the 30 states in 5 territories that have not and may never ban it. If you add in those territories with the states, of these 55 regions of the United States, 63% allow the trans panic defense. Our country as a whole is incredibly hostile to trans people. Listen to episode 128 on Trans Kids 2, the intake exam in trans flight, for how bigoted and dangerous laws are forcing trans people to flee their homes and seek refuge in safer areas within our country. I certainly do not want to travel to any of the states that have not banned the trans panic defense, but do you know what's worse? Trans people live in those states, and I am so scared for them and their safety. I am angry. I'm repulsed. Aren't you? How can anyone justify this?
And also, people shouldn't have to leave their homes to feel
They should
safe.
never have to leave their home to
Like,
feel safe.
yeah,
Absolutely.
People shouldn't have to feel like they need to move out of the state where they have lived. Like, it's such a, like, whenever someone's like, why don't you just move? It's like, well, because they shouldn't have to. They're Americans.
Right.
They've lived in the state their whole life. This country should protect people. Like, that's what it should be for. Like,
Yeah,
it
and
makes
as if
yeah.
that's even an easy thing to do. It costs so much money and resources to relocate, find a new job, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's not a thing most people can do.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, finding a new job in a current economy where there is not jobs. So,
Right.
you know, it's like, where are they going to go? And it just so happens that most of the places that are cool about queer people are also extremely expensive and hard to live in. So,
Yeah, like California and New York, both the two like highest cost of living in the country, and they're the two safest states to be in for
Yeah.
trans people.
That's actually interesting because, like, just this morning, I think, I was just scrolling social media and saw some politician who had posted a map of the US and was like, here's the states where people, like, are most likely to have been born in and still live in. And so it was like color coded.
Sure.
And it was like most of the people who were born in and still lived in, it was like Louisiana. And he was like, and this shows where people want to live. And I'm like, no, it shows where people are living. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean
Yeah.
people want to be there.
I mean, some do, but obviously those states are also like the poorest states,
Right,
people with the
with
least
such
resources need
Cost
to.
of living, like they can't possibly afford
Yeah.
to move somewhere else, even if they wanted to.
Right.
But it was just wild that that was what this person thought that meant. Like, that
Yeah.
just means everyone's happy here.
The way
No.
people draw a conclusion, like they fit the facts to make their conclusion as opposed to the other way around. Like
Yeah.
like they obviously went in wanting to show those states were preferable as opposed
Yeah.
like there's certainly there's no other reason why this could be the case. And like having I know trans and like queer and very liberal leftist people who live in red states and love their
Yeah,
states
same.
and and
Right. Totally not knocking
yeah,
the state for that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that people know we're not making that argument, but we are saying like
Yeah.
there is also a likelihood that like I used to love living in Ohio when I grew up there. Like I did not hate Ohio at all. I'm scared to go to Ohio nowadays because of Ohio is turning into like Florida and Texas 2.0 as far as trans rights are concerned. But
Yeah.
like I left Ohio purely for professional reasons, not out of like I want to abandon my home. Now, like I am scared to go back there, and like that is such a like that. I'm going back there next month, and I'm like a little actually I guess it'll be this month by the time this drops. So
Yeah.
like I think by the time the second episode I'm on drops, I will be in Ohio. So yeah, like yeah, it's wild, but
Yeah, I don't feel safe traveling to like half the states of this country. And then it's even worse because so many trans people live there and were born there and will keep being born there. And they're, they may not be able to leave for their own safety. And it's just, that's why these things have to change.
Yeah.
And cis people, I need to remind you that trans people cannot change this on our own. We are too small a portion of the population. Check out Trans Politics 1, Stop Tolerating Transphobia in episode 88 of this show for more on how it is up to cis people to make positive change in the fight for trans rights.
And on that note, shout out to Montana for like this past week, like
Their
really kind of
Supreme Court,
stepping
yeah.
up. Like there's a state I never would you have pointed to a map and told me like Montana will be the one of the states that will be the most like gender affirming in this country. And that's not to knock on Montana. It's just where I think of what states
Yeah.
it's my own biases. And so like it is extremely possible for quote unquote red states to be very protective and defensive for trans people. And so like if you are a cis person in one of these other states, you can also push for those kind of positive changes in your state.
Exactly, because like Montana has had a bunch of like transphobic laws passed, but then this one got to the Montana Supreme Court and they said, you can't do this. Trans people are protected by our state constitution.
Yeah, I think an interesting argument that I had seen that may have come from the Montana stuff it was about personal freedom.
Right.
And that
supposedly
right, but I mean
of importance to Republicans.
it's an argument that can hit a lot
Yeah.
of different political leanings. Like this is a personal issue that
Right.
is letting people exist the way they want to exist. And that resonated.
That in no way impacts you as a person.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, if this all disgusts you, horrifies you, shocks you, please, for the love of pizza and every trans person in this country, do something about it. Contact your reps about it. Tell them it is unacceptable. Contact them every time they try to ban our healthcare, our use of bathrooms, our ability to play sports, or even exist in public. Call them on it every time. Make transphobic legislation so toxic and awful for them that they have second thoughts.
And bully the hospitals stopping treatment.
Them too.
Yes.
And your state
Oh,
attorney
yeah.
generals, if you have state laws that say you can't discriminate and you're doing it anyway, get on your AG to tell them they have to stop it. Anti-trans hate is actually not a popular political position. Outside of the big bad baby man in charge, many Republicans who campaigned on it in 2024 lost their elections. Link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Huh.
I like losing when they lose.
You like when they
Yes.
lose.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
They're
Yeah.
losing.
I mean, remember back in the day when like the was it South Carolina or North Carolina? I can't remember off the top of my head, but they like were one of the first states to try to like put bathroom bans in, and it was like a total political failure, and it was a complete
The
blow
NBA
up.
pulled out of,
Yeah.
I think, whichever Carolina it was. They were going to have the All-Star game there, I think it was. And they said, we're not going to do that if you're going to have this bigoted bathroom. And then they changed. And this is all just the newest front in their,
Yeah.
scapegoating fight to
Yeah.
find people to demonize.
At this point, there's more anti-trans laws than trans people.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. And then it's wild because then they campaign on like Democrats are obsessed with trans people. And I'm like, I wish Democrats were as obsessed
Right?
with trans people as Republicans are. I wish, like, as you mentioned, with Kamala, like the fact that we weren't even mentioned in that at the Democratic convention that summer, like we didn't like nothing. And then they turn around and say they're obsessed with us. I'm like, it's like you don't stop. You can't get our names out of your mouth, and yet you're saying they're obsessed with us. Like I wish that Democrats were more obsessed with us than they are.
Same. That was the wildest thing to me about Kamala's campaign, because her record on trans rights is so strong in so many ways, and then to not mention it at all, I just feel like they clearly,
unless you're a
early on
trans
in her
felon.
campaign,
If you're a trans felon, you might not like her, right? Her.
Well, she changed that too, though.
That's true, but
she got that changed after having to implement it when it was the wrong way.
I mean, even Biden mentioned it at least once.
Biden mentioned it, but he never did anything.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on having our back.
At least he said he would. Like, she didn't even say anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is like her record on trans rights was pretty darn good for a presidential candidate. And then to not mention it at all, I feel like they were listening to some very, very bad consultants who told them to do bad things. And I think her whole campaign kind
We
of shows
talk
that.
about
So
very bad.
let's not get into okay, that's an
yeah.
entirely
Well,
different topic.
I do feel like it was like the World Series that year, every commercial was like, they're trying to let men play women's sports, and like they always treat it like it's grown adult like men trying to play like 8-year-old girls softball. Like it's always like men trying to play girls sports, and it's like there's such a misogyny in the way it's wild
Oh,
that a
yeah.
thing that is like to protect
Yep.
women is presented in a way that's so misogynistic of like, oh, we're protecting women, but then it treats women as like feeble and weak and unable to
Oh,
compete.
yeah.
It's such a
Absolutely.
wild leap. It's so bizarre.
It is. It's awful. And if you are not familiar with all of that nonsense, see the 2 episodes that we did on trans sports back a little ways, and I don't remember the numbers, but they're there, and you will find out the origins of it. It's the Nazis, and what it's all about, protecting cis men's feelings.
Yep.
I did want to, speaking of cis men's feelings, and to get back to the topic of this episode, like
Yeah.
one of the things that used to drive me bonkers was like there was like a push for a long time to like victim blame like assault victims of like trans violence.
Yeah.
Of it would be like, well, maybe you should disclose that you're trans before you go out with somebody. And that, first of all, and most people, I don't think most trans women are really in today's age stealthing anymore. Like I don't think that's as common as it was back in like
Certainly not as common as it used to be when it was
Yeah.
required. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that like there's plenty of like gorgeous trans women who are influencers who are still happy to like be known as a trans woman. Like there's no like shame in
Yeah.
it, and you know, so like that's a whole thing. But I think I remember the best rebuttal I saw to that commentary of like you should have to disclose that you're trans is someone said, no, I think what you should do instead is you should tell every woman that you date that you might murder them if they have something about them that you don't like. Because
Yeah,
like
right.
if you're someone who could murder a person for being trans, then you should have to disclose that to every woman you date, because you don't that way take the pressure off them to have to disclose something to you. Just let them know up top that you are a murderous psycho, and that way they
Yeah.
know they can make a decision based on that information.
Exactly. The problem is the perpetrators of the violence, not the targets.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, Riley. I know this was not easy to talk about, and I appreciate you coming on to discuss it with us.
Thank you. I was happy to be here.
Folks, these bigoted lawmakers can be stopped. Politicians can be made to see anti-trans hate as politically destructive for them, and you, cis people, are the only ones who can make it happen. Tilly Bridges, end transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges, with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. The written essay version of this week's topic and all past topics is available at tillystranstuesdays.com. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Blue Sky, on Mastodon at Tilly Bridges and Mastodon.social, and on Insta at Heck Yeah Tilly Bridges. And you can find Susan on those at Susan L. Bridges. You can find Jillian at Audio Jillian on Blue Sky. You can join the Tillyverse Discord server by following the link at the very bottom of TillysTransTuesdays.com. We hold regular watch parties for the Matrix films and other trans movies, where I do a live Q&A, and it's blossomed into a wonderfully supportive, compassionate, kind community of friends. We love to have you join us. If you'd like to keep up with all the writing that Susan and I do, you can sign up for our newsletter at birdguestbroadcast.com. Signed copies of our comics and my book, Begin Transmission, The Trans Allegories of the Matrix, are available on my coffee shop at ko-fi.com/tillybridges. If you're listening on YouTube, it's so cliche, but please like and subscribe and take a few seconds to leave a comment. Those feed the algorithm and helps the show be found by so many more people. If you're listening on other platforms, ratings and reviews help just as much, and I'd certainly appreciate them. Thank you for your support. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.
Oh, these. I just knocked over coffee. I gotta clean that up. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Oh, no.